All right, I think we are recording. Let me make sure we're recording. Did that work or
You
not?
are. I
Okay.
see it.
Oh, it says recording. Yes. Zoom. Hey, hello. I'm Mark Anderson, president of the Chattanooga Writers Guild, and I am with a group called the North Georgia Writers Group, and they're affiliated with our guild, or one of our writers groups with the guild. And we are recording this in late October 2020 during COVID global health crisis. And so we're recording this virtually from a distance, socially distant. And I want to introduce our members. Let's see, I'll go from, well, Barbara Tucker, are you kind of the leader of the group, Barbara?
I don't think so. I'm just more of a facilitator with the getting the technology links and such.
Okay. Well, Barbara writes short and long form fiction. She has published 7 novels, Traveling Through, Crossroad, Legacy with Oak Tara, and Bringing Abundance Back, The Unexpected Christmas Visitors, Long Lost Family, Long Lost Promise, as self-published. She is currently working on the next in the Long Lost series of mysteries and is setting Sudden Future to publishers. Her short fiction was recognized in the last 2 Chattanooga Writers Guild contests. Her play, The Fork River Tanning Salon and Bait Shop will be, oh, that's one long word. It's not 2 separate titles. Fork River Tanning Salon and Bait Shop will be formed at Dalton State College in November. We need to announce that. That's coming up in just 2 weeks. So that should be in our newsletter. How about if we'll talk about that later, make sure it is. And you're also a prolific writer in academic material. You are a college professor. You are a professor, communication chair, department chair of communication and performing arts at Dalton State College, and foreign languages, right? At Dalton State College. And so I think you're, you know a bit about writing, shall we say.
They all do. We all do.
Next I have Devereaux Chivington-Stebbins. And you're writing, Hugo Writing, AKA CS Devereaux. Being a good listener laid the cornerstone of being a writer. While growing up in Birmingham, Alabama, she studied people and listened. A summer spent as a Birmingham City Directory data collector provided ample opportunity to hear grand Southern ladies tell their stories while she sips sweet tea with them on their verandas. Devereaux has published essays in Sun Magazine, and we'll have 3 short stories in the 22 Chattanooga Writers Guild anthology. Her books include Another Adventure and The Land Between Heaven and Earth. Are these historical novels?
Another Adventure is a memoir.
Okay.
Of Charlotte Siebert, and I wrote a little synopsis there about what it's about. And The Land Between Heaven and Earth, no one's ever heard that title before because I only changed the name last week because I'm about to publish it. It's been Snowbird Mountain, Sky People, Dust in the Wind, a lot of different things. But then when I finally finished it, I looked at it and I said, it's The Land Between Heaven and Earth. And so I like it. There isn't another one out there like that. So that's what it is.
It's interesting. That says a lot about writing, right in that. How you change the name. The most important part, you change it at the very end. Okay.
Right. But it is a historical novel.
Historical novel set in the Appalachian Mountains will be published early in 2021. Let's see. We have Pamela Pettyjohn, former elementary teacher, has stories published by Chicken Soup for the Soul, Think Positive for Kids, and Angels Among Us. She contributed to the Sesquicentennial Chronicle of the North Georgia Baptist Association. Her poetry appears in Blue Ridge Parkway Celebration, various anthologies. Heavenly Spring won 3rd place, and Rainbows won Editor's Choice Award and other publications. She has written plays and monologues used in her church. Her current project is a book of poetry, mostly haiku, illustrated with photography by her husband, Charles. And then we have Becky Wooley. Becky Wooley is a substitute teacher, former church secretary, and journalism experience and writing credits in 4 states. She has an MS degree in media education from Florida State University and is the author of humorous Grit and Grace Mystery Clerical Crime Series. And the titles of those 2 books, Nonprofit Murders, A Grit and Grace Mystery, and Murder Intelligently Designed. That's book 2 of that series. Do you have more in that series coming?
I'm about to finish the 3rd, and it is a prequel, so we're going to back up before Grit and Grace actually meet each other. And it should be finished by December.
Well, there's a lot of writing experience in this virtual room. So I'm going to ask you a little bit about your North Georgia Writers group. How long have you had this group? How long has it been around?
September of 2011.
Okay. And how did it start? Or who started it? Do you remember?
Barbara Tucker.
Well,
Oh, really?
let's back up on that. What happened was that at that time, the Guild was having a series of workshops that they would do at different locations. And prior to that time, a little bit, we had one at Dalton State, and it was well attended. I got a guy to come in and talk about publishing, and that's where I met Bruce Garn, and he was one of the beginners, and Pam and a few other people that some have gone on and done other things, but so we were the core that started it, and so that's how it got started, from that workshop that the Guild was holding in various areas in Chattanooga, North Georgia.
Normally, before the COVID crisis, where did you meet at?
Panera Bread and Fort Oglethorpe.
Okay, so you choose a nice restaurant, you can all hang out for a while and
Have coffee and eat pastries.
yeah. Are you open to new members, or are you kind of full? Because it seems like there'd be a time with all these groups, once it gets over a certain amount of people, then the meeting would go into late in the night to have everyone. How many members do you think is comfortable for your group?
I sent out, I received an email from the Guild, and it asked me to reach out to about 5 or 6 people who had indicated interest in a group. And so I did reach out to them. One person has joined and actually submitted something. We've workshopped it at the last meeting. I'm not sure the others will be able to. So due to, they live in Hickson, et cetera. So we have had as many as 7 in a meeting. So that's probably a good number. Not everybody submits every week, 7 to 8 maybe.
Okay.
I don't know. Some of the others might disagree with me, but that's fine.
That's interesting. That's helpful. And then in your meetings, how do they work? What would a typical meeting work like? What's the goal of your meetings and how does it work?
I'll let someone else answer that one.
I'm sort of a late joiner, and I have been blessed to be in this group. And the way it works for me is every 2 weeks, I am motivated to get something out there and submitted, and I am able to see other people who are good writers send me things, and I'm able to examine them, and it improves my editing skills, it improves my writing skills. And to have everybody make comments on my work, it has helped me greatly to finish this book, because the things that I would normally have to have an editor do or go back and figure out, you know, I have had freebies from my colleagues, and I greatly appreciate it.
Do you submit your works in advance, or do you just bring it and read it at the meeting?
We submit them in advance. We meet on a Thursday, the second and fourth Thursday of every month. And so the Sunday prior to our meeting is our deadline for submitting our work. And because we have several members, we limit the number of pages that we submit at a time to 10 pages. Could be 11, you know, but generally speaking, 10 pages. Everyone has a chance then to critique everyone else's writing. And then when we meet, we discuss each one's writing and have a group discussion about it.
All right. And you're part of the Chattanooga Writers Guild. Do you find that a good relationship? Why do you guys want to be part of the guild? Guys, gals. In other words, I don't know.
For me, it's a professional issue, largely. I hate to say it that way, but it, you know, it helps me professionally as far as putting it on my resume and that kind of thing. I have not been able to take advantage of it very much, although you do have a website and that's supportive of us, so.
Okay.
Yeah, and well, I go to the meetings when I can. Our group meets at 3 in the afternoon, which seems to work for us. And the Writers Guild meetings are at 7 at night, which is not an easy time for me to make. I'm able to go, now that you have them on Facebook and you have, a lot online that you're doing, I can go and look at that, which I appreciate. And I like some of the speakers that you have, and it is nice to also be able to put that on a resume, you know, that I belong to it, because it has a very good reputation.
Well, thank you. Well, I go by the theme that writers actually do better in community. I don't know, would you agree with that? I mean, writers have the reputation of, because we don't have to have someone in the room with us when we're writing, and we usually don't. But is there something about the community of writers that you've?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, writing itself is a solitary process, but I found since I joined the writers group, I write more, you know, and more often, and the quality of my writing is better. It's really important to have critical feedback from other writers, because it elevates my writing, and I get to have someone look at it objectively, because after I've been staring at the screen for, you know, day after day, I miss things, whether it's grammatical errors that I don't see anymore because I've been looking at it for too long. And sometimes there might be a sequence of events that don't work right, or a word that doesn't fit, the way that I want it to do. And that's all important, to the whole process. So that's why I like it. And beyond that, there is a camaraderie that has developed within our group. I mean, all of these people who are here today, plus the ones that aren't, I consider my friends. And I value their friendship as much as I value their opinions. And so that's really important. It makes me feel, it's uplifting is what it is. And it was, I used to look forward to our meetings at Panera Bread so much. I got really excited about it, just couldn't wait to go. And now, we meet virtually, which is better than nothing at all. But either way, at the end of those meetings, I am jazzed and I want to write. And so for me, it's a win-win.
And I agree. This is my first experience with a writers group, and I really wasn't sure what to expect when I started coming. And for me, it's been encouraging, and it's been very educational. I found that just being in the meetings and listening to writers critique each other has helped me so much. There were so many intricacies with writing in the process that I really hadn't thought through. So having other writers share what they're writing and then to hear the critiques has been very helpful. And it's been very challenging, especially with writing poetry. Often I struggle with finding the right words. And even though I use thesauruses and dictionaries and those kinds of things, there are people in the group who bring to it the various experiences, and they can come up with ideas that I just hadn't even thought about. So it really helps to broaden my approach to whatever I'm writing. I tremendously value everyone in the group and their input.
All right, thanks.
I would add the sense of diversity. If you just have your friends that are not going to say too much bad to you about you, and that's not to say that this group is hypercritical. I please don't misunderstand me, but they give a different perspective and they have an objectivity that you probably aren't going to get if you just say to a friend, hey, read this. And, or if you give it to an editor and say, I'll pay you for it. I really, and I value their input so much. And I really would say this, I was in a group, we sort of not gotten together, but a group of English professors at the college. And I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, but I got better critique from this group and for various reasons. But I really did. I just could get better feedback. Everyone here is a very close reader, careful reader, knowledgeable about good writing. And there are 3 or 4 people who are not here today who I wish they were, because they have some really powerful things to say about writing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I'd like to add, let's talk about writing now. So this question to all of you, we'll answer one at a time, is if you were judging a writing contest, whether it's poetry or fiction, whatever your preferred genre is, what 2 elements that would you look for first? What would be at the top of your criteria list to say, this is what I look for in great writing? And let's see, at my screen here, below me is Barbara. So you want to go first?
Well, I think I'm going to come at it from this perspective. I want to see that the writer has done due diligence, and they might have a good story that they put down on paper, and that's great. But I also want to see that they've taken the time to perfect it and get their craft right. I want to see that they have a good grab at the beginning, whatever you want to call that, hook. Mm-hmm. I want to see that they take care with language, that they're using the action verbs and they're using detail that's right. They get the historical detail right, and that they've done their research and those kind of things. The old saying is the devil's in the detail, when other people say God is in the details, but I think writing is in the details. So I can, if I get into it and I see that maybe they're going somewhere, but they really haven't done the due diligence to hone their craft, I'm probably going to set it aside, because I think it's going to disappoint me. And that's pretty harsh, but you just, too many people think they want to write and they don't want to do the dirty work. They don't want to do the hard stuff.
Okay, thanks. Well, so yeah, we are looking for judges for some of our contests. So keep you in mind there.
I went in the contests.
Pamela, what would you say are two elements that you admire in great writing?
I found this really difficult. I have to agree with what Barbara's saying already. Maybe relatable characters. I like to be able to put myself in a character's position, and just something that's very creative and imaginative. I enjoy writing for children, so I like things that may really help children broaden their imagination. So just generally speaking, maybe those two things. And when it comes to poetry, being able to succinctly get across ideas and emotions. So maybe that could sum it up.
Sweet, thank you. Devereaux.
Okay, well, to add to what Barbara and Pam have said, because I agree with everything that they've already said. In addition to that, I don't know about if I was going to be judging a contest, it would have to be everything that Barbara just said. But then in just reading in general, if I'm going to read a story, I want to be completely drawn into it. And whether I'm judging for a contest or just picking up something to read, I want to be drawn into it so that I become completely absorbed in the world that the author has created. That to me is good writing. And part of that would be, besides the good opening hook that takes me beyond just the first few paragraphs, and I want to keep turning the pages, the intriguing characters that I can relate to, like Pam said, and so I can experience what that character is experiencing in my imagination as I read. And also visuals and descriptions that use all the senses. Because to me, when I read something, it's like a movie, only better, because I can see and hear and taste and smell and touch, and if it's really good, it touches my heart. So those are all things that I would look for.
Well said, thanks. Sure, we agree. And Becky?
All of that, which once they've done their due diligence, once they've created their characters and so on, it does allow me to go into the story. I want to see something I have never seen before, or feel something I've never felt before, and be able to understand where these characters are coming from. Right now, I think we're all talking about fiction. In nonfiction, it has to be very precise and very clear language. So it's going to be something that allows me to understand something I've never understood before. So if that makes any sense.
It does. All right. Well, let's do some samples of your own writing. And Barbara, what did you bring to read today?
All right. I decided to read the first chapter, the prologue. Let me balance my thing here. Of my last self-published novel, Long Lost Promise, that to a large extent the group workshopped with me. And let me preface by saying that they told me that I did not have a hook, and they were right. Sometimes my hooks don't come at the beginning when they should, so I have to rethink that. So this, with their help, this is the first chapter. It's very short.
Okay.
Chapter 1, Scott Wallace, Thursday, July 5th, 1:06 a.m. I lay on the cot in my office when the police scanner screeched to life. What the was my first thought as I sat up, getting my bearings. I drifted asleep after putting the paper to bed. In today's digital world, that means pushing the submit button to send the files to the printer 100 miles away. Body found in wooded area off County Route 7, mile marker 5, halfway between Road and Cherokee Creek, near Kentville community of Kiowa County. Other voices were responding, some deep, some tired. I wouldn't call the voices frantic at the idea of a body, which meant a death, discovered after midnight of the 4th of July. I would call them motivated. Beyond the location, the voices weren't explaining much. Not yet. This all meant my nap was over and it was going to be a long night. The relief I felt when I knew the newspaper files were received disappeared. Instead, I realized that this year's 4th of July was going to forever signify a tragedy for some family. Eventually, one of the voices on the scanner responded a more precise address of the discovery. At this point, all I could do was guess about the condition and circumstances of the body. Through still bleary eyes, I scrutinized the 6 foot by 8 map of the county on the office wall to figure out the location I would be headed toward, even though I would use my phone's GPS. I wasn't dressed for hiking through that area, if it came to that, but at least I was wearing something close to comfortable shoes and had a high-power flashlight in my car. I punched the address into my phone's GPS, used the bathroom, locked the office door, and was on my way. While one part of me was responding to the adrenaline of a serious crime and what it meant for the paper, the larger part of me wished like nothing else that this was not happening. Someone in the community was dead, their body found in an out-of-the-way place late at night. Someone who probably got that way by unnatural causes.
Wow. I might have to read that.
Please do.
Yeah, I'll have to get the link on that.
Mhm.
So that is, I felt like it was a hook. They said it didn't have a hook.
No. That was after they told me I didn't have a hook.
Oh, okay. They helped you
Yeah.
hookify it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But you started right off with a good setting, introduction to a character. It's mid-action starting. And all the way through, in my mind, I can visualize this person and what they're describing a scene. Every part of it, I could visualize it. So that's important to me. Good writing has visual images. So I thought, how did you use a first-person narrator? Is that typical for you? You just like someone to tell the story from their point of view?
In this series, I am to some extent, but not typically have I done that. No.
Okay. How did this story start in your creative process? What was the beginnings of it? What inspired this?
Well, it's a second in a series of mysteries about a newspaper editor in a small town in North Georgia, of all places, that looks a lot like Ringgold.
Okay.
And that, the first in the series is about a murder, but it's a little bit dark. It's kind of a dark comedy a little bit. This one is dead serious and tragic. And the next one is very tragic so the one I'm working on now. And to be honest, the character is someone that used to work in newspaper in Ringgold. So based on someone I'd met, I knew about.
Okay. Well, maybe that helps. Does that help instead of just inventing a character out of the blue? As a fiction writer, does it help if there's some sort of a identity to that? I mean, I'm no good at fiction writing. I can't invent a character and make them very thick. So
I don't know how you would not do it to some extent, but you do need to be careful, because all of us who've written novels know that people will come up to you and think that you stole their life for your book.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they do.
Well, see, if I was to create a character, they would probably be not very real. They would be lopsided, I don't know, or find inconsistencies. So I think it's a very interesting, I don't know if writers create a character and then outline them. They should have a profile of their character. so that they can be consistent from the beginning of the book till the end. Okay, well, thanks. That was, do you typically like writing fiction, or what else do you write?
Mostly fiction, yes.
Okay, and academic, thanks.
Yeah, no, I'm not a poet.
Hmm.
Not at all.
Okay. Well, should we just move on to Pamela then? What do you have to read for us?
Well, I have a few poems.
Okay. And these go with the photos. If we saw the book, we would see the photos too, right?
Yes.
In your current book, it's a photo and it's illustrated. There's photos and poems.
Right.
Is this part of that book or something else?
Well, this poem will be part of that book, but the first one I'm going to read is part of the Blue Ridge Parkway celebration, but I will be including it in our book as well.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Symphony. Oh, let me show one of the pictures that I'll use.
Okay.
There we go. Symphony. Pianissimo wind blows gently through fog-veiled forest. Rustling leaves, melody, nature's talented musicians. Whistling wind crescendos, limbs sway, conducting orchestra. Twigs, sharp staccato snaps, accent syncopated timing. Shrill wind decrescendos, humming scarlet, rust, golden leaves, harmonize with forest. Autumn's symphony finale.
I switched to speaker view so we could see that picture better. Hold it up again.
Okay. Here we go.
I see. All right, thanks.
Okay. And then some of the haiku that will be in the book. This first one.
Okay, see that? Thanks.
Rain drenches redbud, closed blossoms capture raindrops, floral reflections.
Hmm.
And then, camera shy insect hides behind daisy petal, waiting to emerge.
Huh. Funny.
Let's see. Cool tumbling cascade carves pathway through verdant woods, creates shallow pool. Most of the poems have to do, and photographs have to do with nature, and the majority of the poems will be haiku, but there's one, and this is the only one I've done like this, a tricube poem. Looking glass falls, mirror reflects sun. People swim, rest in shade, climb on rocks. Blowing mist refreshes, cools hikers.
Can we talk about haiku for a minute and the character of haiku?
Yes.
What draws you to that? Why do you enjoy that?
Well, it's just a fun type of poetry to write. I really hadn't intended to compile a book. It was just something I enjoyed doing, and my husband enjoys photography, and we just seem to kind of, I guess, encourage each other. He would find something and photograph it, and then I would just start coming up with the ideas for a poem, or vice versa. Sometimes I would come up with a haiku, and I'd say, "Can you see if you can find this?" And then sometimes we can just be out hiking and a haiku will come to me and I say, "Charles, would you get this photograph?" And he will take that. Or other times it's just being out hiking or just being outdoors is a lot of where I get the inspiration. And just the haiku, I guess, maybe even when I was teaching, that was something my students enjoyed doing as well.
Well, it seems like in that Japanese art form, there's really a difference in Western. Okay, this is my theory. In Japanese poetry, they're able to just get a snapshot or a of some instance, some picture of nature without trying to have it have a curve, an arc of a narrative arc. So in Western literature, we like to have the whole arc. We like to have a crescendo and a cathartic ending and all that, or it has to have a narrative story to it, even our poetry. And they were able to just value the moment and say, so you can have a haiku that's just like, the bird is just there being pretty. And that's it.
Yeah.
You know, you describe the bird and there it is, or the power, or whatever moment it is. And it's, so it's very different in character. It's not just the little 5 or 3 lines, you know, the syllable count and all that. There is a very different nature to the art in itself. That's what and so that's when I asked, what draws you to it? Just kind of wondering about those kinds of things.
I think it's because it does require you to really focus in on maybe one thing, and find the words that can sum up and the words that can try to get an emotion.
Okay. And let's see, well, those were all so short, but I guess short and precious. Anything else you want to say about those?
Well,
Did you have?
I don't know whether I've done a haiku chain that's COVID-19 and a couplet, a rhyming couplet poem about the pandemic as well. And then I have one that's just a rhyming poem I wrote with children in mind.
Okay. Yeah, why don't you do one of those?
Okay. Let me do the one that I had children in mind when I wrote it. In fact, this is actually one that I've considered redoing into a book of some kind. And I think it's because this was one I wrote a few years ago, and Barbara Tucker suggested I consider redoing it as a book. The Detective. It was a quiet, sunny morning. Glistening dew clung to the grass. We walked together on our daily route when a strange sight we happened to pass. He stopped to check out the evidence, seeming to forget I was there. The expert detective sprang into action, eager for a suspect to snare. He charged down the likely escape path. I examined clues left behind. Scattered bits of gray, white fur on the grass was all the evidence I could find. The tired, satisfied detective returned. His expression said, "Case closed. No reason for further investigation." Old, seasoned canine detective soon dozed.
Thanks. Really nice. Okay, so who's next? Is it Devereaux? Devereaux, let's have you read your piece and tell us what the setting is or what it's about.
Okay. Well, the title is, as I said before, The Land Between Heaven and Earth. And what this is a historical novel about a man named Jason Hyde. And well, first, let me explain how I came to write this, because I don't know him. I had to do an awful lot of research to find out about him. What happened was I had written the memoir that was in my bio. And then a friend came to me and said she had a really good story for me, that it was about her mother. And in fact, it was a horrific story and involves child murders and prejudice and revenge. It is, and it has been written about before, very briefly. But so I said, all right, I'll give it a stab. And I started doing research on it and unearthed more questions than answers. So then I began digging into her family's past, unbeknownst to her. And that led me to Jason Hyde, and who is her great-great-grandfather, my friend's great-great-grandfather. And I realized that I had to write his story first before I could write the other story. So once this is published, then I will begin the sequel to this, which will be, this takes place in the 19th century. The sequel takes place in the early 20th century and involves his progeny. And so that's the reason for it. And so it takes place in the 19th century. Jason Hyde lived in the western North Carolina mountains, and he was born in 1829. And so about the time the Civil War began, he was in his 30s. And at that time, he was a teacher and a farmer. And most everyone in the western North Carolina mountains were farmers, but he was the area teacher for the children. And then when the war began, the school closed, and he had no livelihood. And so circumstances led him to take an unlikely path, because he began as a very respected, virtuous man, and he took the wrong fork is what he did. And it led him to a life of crime and corruption. Yet, because he was so likable, I think, and he was still seen as a hero while he was doing these things, I think some people had to have known about it, but a lot didn't. And so he got away with a lot of things. And so the story is about his journey to reparation. And it is a long and twisted tale that is basically, is a tragic tale is what it is. So it's a tragic tale, but in the end, there is something good that happens. So.
Okay, well, let's hear your piece.
Okay, this is the introduction to chapter 1. My narrator is the medicine woman of the tribe. And so she's telling Jason's story. I am Corn Woman, medicine woman to the Snowbird tribe of Cherokee Indians. We live in the villages around Buffalo Town, Snowbird, and the Chihuahua Valley towns in North Carolina, located among the clouds that cover the Snowbird Mountains. It is for that reason we are sometimes called Sky People. I was a girl when Jason Stephen Hyde was born, and an apprentice to my mother, chief medicine woman to our tribe. It was the month of July, 1829, and Orion, the ghost of the shimmering summer dawn, smiled down upon us as baby Jason took his first breath in my arms. That is why he is forever attached to me. Jason grew up to be a farmer and family man, teacher, soldier, lawman, and criminal. He was a man of many faces, a complicated man. He often perplexed me. When Jason was a boy, white men tore my people apart. We called it the Trail of Tears. Those of us who escaped displacement became the Eastern Band of the Cherokee Nation. Jason's father, John Aaron, hid my family and me in the cellar under his home. It is thanks to him that I am telling Jason's story today. Some years later, white men waged war against each other. They called it the War Between the States. It tore our land apart. Cherokee bore arms for our white chief, Colonel Will Thomas, who stuck by the Confederates. Jason did battle beside us, but for twisted reasons which you will come to know. Now I am old, and I have much to tell. As medicine woman, my tribe and the mountaineers are my family. I heal them of their ailments. They come to me in times of spiritual need. It is my duty to know their histories, although that knowledge sometimes comes at a painful price. There are all kinds of suffering in the world, but nothing hurts like carrying an untold tale inside you. Trouble is, some do not want to be told right away. You got to wait until they want telling, and the world is ready to listen. Jason Hyde's story is such a one.
Wow. Okay, well, thanks for explaining the background to that. So when you do this historical novel, is there a real Corn Woman? Is she fictional? No. Okay.
She's fictional. Yeah, this novel is peopled primarily with real people, but I used fictional people to tell tell different parts of the story. I needed a narrator, and it didn't work with Jason telling his own story. It worked better with having someone else tell it. So I invented someone that that could tell it. He grew up, he and his family lived on the reservation. They grew up, you know, in the village with them. So they knew them, that all knew each other very, very well. So the Cherokees do play a part in this story.
Well, I think this is wonderful writing, a sample of, I don't know how to describe it. It's like the whole book is, how far along are you in this book?
I finished it last week.
Okay. How large is it? Just curious. Not that that matters.
About 400 pages.
Wow. Okay. That's pretty good size. And it goes all through his life.
No.
No.
No, it covers 10 years.
10 years of his life. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is a wonderful, a good example of, you know, how you personify and give texture and substance to a story. And I think it's a really neat idea to have it told from this third person perspective. And sure, it's a fascinating story. And so are you seeking a publisher for it? Or are you going to what is your process in that? What's the next step?
Well, I've always thought that I would self-publish. And I've been asked lately by some people who have read parts of it that, you know, if I was going to get an agent. I don't know where to go for an agent, because everything I've read about agents today is that to have anyone take you seriously and read your work, you have to have a platform with thousands of fans and, you know, and be on social media and blog and do all these things. I don't have time to blog. I'm not great with social media. I don't have any fans. So just the ones that are here at this meeting, maybe, and that's it. So that's why I thought I would self-publish.
I'm right in the same space with you. It seems like the road to publishing through traditionally is such a huge obstacle. It's like, yeah, I'll just self-publish. But in your case, I'm thinking this is high enough quality that some publishers should grab it. But I don't know about all the agents and all that stuff too. And then it depends on what you want financially out of it, how thin you want to slice that pie, if you want to make 10 cents a copy or if you want to make $5 a copy.
Right, yeah.
So those are hard issues, and I wish the Writers Guild could be more of an assistance to all the writers, because that's kind of, hopefully there's other writers members that could sort of mentor or help us along and say, here, try to take this road, because, you know, we're here, sort of here for each other, and I would like to see you get it published. Just from the first page there.
Can I jump in here and say something?
Yeah.
I think that one avenue is to just Google, and you got to do a little homework, of course, a lot of homework, but to Google publishers who will take manuscripts, who will consider manuscripts that are unsolicited or unagented. And
Yeah, I've done that.
You can find some. I found one recently that I just sent something to. And you have to be careful, because some of them are scams, and you have to look at what they really are and do and get recommendations. But there is a process or a path without getting an agent, but it's slow. I'll just put it that way. It's slow.
Slow, keyword slow. Now,
Yeah.
I attended a Zoom session a few months ago on writing a proposal letter for a nonfiction book. And the presenter on that, she had written several cookbooks, and she got her contracts on all those by sending out these letters in advance. So I don't know. We as a guild, that's kind of our goal. And any other comments on that before we move on to the next reader? Anyway, I just think you really did a good job in selecting that voice, the narrator's voice in that. She's does really well. Okay, let's move on to Becky Wooley.
Hey, this is really short and it says next to nothing about my book, but there are 4 things you need to know. This is a letter. It's part of a letter, and it's addressed to Britt Griffin from his mother. And Britt is away at college, and he spent last summer working in a chicken farm. And he has a younger brother named Calvin. And we mentioned the Skillet Girls, who are a trio of sisters that sing. So here's the excerpt. Speaking of Calvin, he's dating. Never thought it would happen, but he's taken up with the youngest Skillet girl, Patience, the one who sings the low alto and sounds like her brother Ellis on the telephone. Don't know why those Skillet boys don't sing much. Every one of them plays an instrument or 3. But come to think of it, all those boys take after their dad. They're all kin to the Humphreys, and Humphreys' men are not that good looking. You wouldn't want to stare at a bunch of them for any length of time, no matter how well they sing. Better to put them in the back behind some instrument or other. They're all in the band at school, even the sisters. I think that's where Calvin and Patience got together. Most likely, things got to sparking on the band trip. Calvin came back acting like his head was on backwards. You know Patience, she's about as sweet as they come and real bouncy. You can't catch her standing unless she's singing. You can't stand a little. You can't catch her standing still unless she's singing. And even then, she's banging her hip with a tambourine and can't keep her feet still for a minute. I saw it right away, the way Calvin watched her at church, him playing his drums and her sisters in front of him, singing and bouncing. She still has braces on her teeth, but she started bouncing in all the right places last summer, and she's probably going to bounce better than any of her sisters, if you know what I mean. I could tell he had his eyes on her especially, but when he asked her out, you could have knocked me over with one of those feathers you brought home last summer. I'm still finding them in corners when I vacuum. I didn't think Calvin had the courage, but certain urges will give any man a backbone.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah, I love
Let's see, switch back to gallery view so we can talk here. So what was the inspiration for that? Are these people you know?
My sisters and I sang when we were younger, and we sang in church, and we sang at funerals, and we sang at weddings, and so on. But my husband and I went to a very tiny little church in Georgia, and all the young people were involved in music, and they all played instruments, and so that goes into this part of my book, but it's a very small part of my book. The premise of this 3rd book is that Britt is at this tiny little church, and somebody pulls off this spectacular magic trick that looks like a miracle, and everybody in the church is worshiping this event, and he's out to prove that it was a hoax, and in the process gets involved in some murders. So
Okay. And is this part of that the series?
yes,
Let's go back to your bio here. What are the 2 books that you're working on?
the 2 that I finished, Nonprofit Murders and Murder Intelligently Designed. The first one, I kill off 3 preachers. And in the second one, I deal with the topic of intelligent design.
Okay.
And it is, I had it reviewed by Ben Stein, who I don't know if anybody remembers, he also, in addition to being an actor, he's also a writer and a producer. He produced a movie called, well, anyway, it's all about academic freedom and the fact that religion is virtually banned from our higher academic institutions. And I had him read the book, and he said it was very intelligent and very well thought out and funny. And I have his blurb on the back of my book. But this third one, I don't know if anybody remembers the story in the Times Free Press about the oily Bible. Does anybody catch that? Yeah. So that was part of the motivation for doing this. People are so gullible, and I hate to see religion turned into superstition. And so I'm trying to present the truth as opposed to sentiment and superstition.
I see. So it is a fictitious, the stories are fiction, right? But it sounds,
Absolutely.
but yet in the way it's told, these are real people. I mean, almost real, because any church,
They're a little exaggerated. They're all just a little bit exaggerated.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Because anyone who's been in church has seen these people you're talking about. And so they're very common to all of us. Okay.
Especially if you were raised in a very fundamentalist, strict upbringing.
Yeah. Well, I know here in Tennessee, this is a very important issue to all of us. And I think we all struggle with these tensions of valid faith versus, all the other stuff. And in fact, you can't read very much literature, go very far. It's just common. And I've been studying Shakespeare. I go to UTC, and in my Shakespeare class, it's in everything he writes. In fact, most poetry is just a common theme of people being challenged, and they're writing criticisms of religion, and they're writing challenges, and it's that common human, something in the human heart that says, I need God, but I need the truth. I've had enough of all kinds of the other nonsense.
And clerical crime is based on that premise, that you are dealing with people who are involved with religion. And if you read Father Brown or Rabbi Small or any of those in that genre, you're going to have theology, philosophy, all of that.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like so where are your books are on Amazon? Are these self-published?
The first one had a publisher, and it was not a good fit. Long story. The second one I self-published, and I got the rights back to the first one and republished it. And this third one I wrote as a prequel, hoping that I can get an agent and sell the trio of them. So
Okay.
if I can market them, I could even rename them and put new covers on them and all the whole schmear, and they definitely need to be revised. So I would like to sell them as a package if possible.
Well, we're certain in the age of self-publishing, and I admire all the self-publishers out there because I'm one. And it's an entrepreneurial spirit. It says, hey, I got a good product here. Let me see what I can do with it. Okay, well, I don't really know what else to say about that story, except for the characters all sound fascinating. And it's a well-told story. Okay, well, we've had a great time together, and I thank you all for being part of Chattanooga Writers Guild and keeping your group going and all your amazing writing. I'm totally convinced that this organization we are packed with all kinds of amazing talent. I'm so glad to be part of it. And thank you for sharing this hour with us. We'll be sure to post the links to your works. At the end of this video, there will be a slide with the links where people can pause and write down that link where they can look up your stuff. Thank you very much, you all, and I will end the recording now if I can find, okay. We need
All right.
this
And
is,
thank you for filming us.
Thanks, Chris.
let me see, where's that recording thing? Stop recording.